What's up, guys? This is Jeff from Sorta Healthy, and today we are talking about the thing that most of us hate to talk about: money. Money is important, though. Without money, you can't buy cool cars, Starbucks Frappuccinos, mini poodles, or any of the other essentials. In all seriousness, though, money is pretty damn important. And one thing that a lot of people wonder when considering a career in personal training is, can I make enough money to support myself and have a bit of fun too if I work as a personal trainer? In this video today, we'll be answering that question, and we'll also go over how much money personal trainers made in 2020. Yeah, that's right, 2020, that dumpster fire of a year that we would all love to forget. I'm also going to share with you guys what I think the future of the personal training industry will look like. A fair amount of research went into making this video, and if you appreciate that, then I would appreciate a like on the video and you subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. This helps to support the channel and allows me to make more free content for all of you. Thank you very much for the support, everyone. It really is very helpful to us here over at Sorta Healthy. So I made a video about 9 months ago where I looked at what personal trainers made in 2019. Actually, a few of the stats I used in that video were also from 2018, but that shouldn't really make a huge difference because personal trainers made pretty much the exact same amount of money in 2018 compared to 2019. 2020 does seem a little bit different compared to both of those 2 years, though, and we'll get into more of that very soon. I wanted to bring up those years, though, because there was a pretty big discrepancy in how much trainers reported to make depending on where they reported their income to. Salary.com said trainers made about $61,000 a year. ZipRecruiter said trainers made about $49,000 a year. Glassdoor.com said trainers made about $45,000 a year. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics said trainers made about $40,000 a year. So the highest number there is $61,000 and the lowest number there is $40,000. So why is there such a big discrepancy there in pay? Well, I don't have any proof, but I would assume that some trainers are inflating their numbers a bit since all of these sites are self-reporting. People aren't quite as likely to pump their numbers up when giving information to a governing body like the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Something that I mentioned in my last video on trainer pay was that I suspect that trainers who make a larger than average amount of money report their incomes more often than trainers who make a lower than average amount of money. I don't know about you guys, but if I was barely getting by as a trainer, I wouldn't be all that keen on reporting how much money I was making to anybody. In fact, this was me for a while. I was barely getting by as a trainer, and how little money I was actually making in the very beginning was a little bit embarrassing. There's no way I would have accurately shared how much money I was making at that point in my career voluntarily on any of these websites. Now that I do pretty well as a trainer, I would share how much money I make voluntarily on any of these sites. So yes, you guys get what I'm saying here. By the way, if you guys actually do want me to share how much money I made personally in 2020, then let me know down in the comments. I go back and forth on whether or not I actually want to make that video because one, I just don't like to brag, and two, this channel is primarily about bringing value to other personal trainers and people who are considering a future career in personal training. I don't want to come off like a lot of the other trainers / mentors out there who offer very little in terms of value and like to brag about how successful they are and how much money they make. So if you guys want to see what I made as a personal trainer and a small business owner in 2020 and you think you'd find some kind of value in that, make sure to let me know. Anyways, back to this $21,000 pay discrepancy back in 2018 and 2019. Why does it matter for 2020? It matters for 2020 because at the time of recording this video, the Bureau of Labor Statistics doesn't have any stats for trainer pay in 2020. Some other sites did though, so for 2020, Salary.com had the average trainer in the USA making about $62,000 a year. ZipRecruiter had the average trainer making $45,000 to $51,500 per year in 2020. And Glassdoor had the average personal trainer salary for 2020 at just under $37,000. So again, we have a pretty wide range here. Salary.com says $62,000 and Glassdoor says under $37,000. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys, I think the Glassdoor salary of $37,000 is way closer to what the average personal trainer salary was for 2020. The gyms and studios that most of us work at in 2020 were closed for stretches of time. This forced many of us to train our clients virtually or via webcam. A very significant portion of clients didn't want to train virtually. This is just a fact. Myself personally, I went from averaging about 40 sessions a week in January and February to about 15 to 20 sessions a week in March through June. After my studio opened again, I quickly returned back to averaging just under 40 sessions a week. Still though, I lost about $5,000 to $10,000 in 2020 by not doing as many sessions in March through June. This means that if we're only looking at personal training income, I actually made slightly less money in 2020 than I did in 2019. And I suspect this would be true for most personal trainers. It has certainly been true for most personal trainers that I've been in contact with. In fact, most trainers that I've talked to have actually been less successful than myself when it comes to converting their clients to a virtual setting. This would mean that many personal trainers lost an even bigger chunk of their pay than I did. So even though some of these self-reported stats don't show it, I think it's a pretty safe bet to assume that most personal trainers made a little bit less money in 2020 compared to what they made in 2019. An article that I will link to in the video description from the PTDC pretty much confirms this. So kudos to the Personal Trainer Development Center for this article. I think they did a great job of showing some of what happened this past year. They surveyed 1,169 fitness professionals. About 21% of those trainers said they made more money during the pandemic, and about the same number also said that their income stayed about the same. This means that according to this article, about 58% of the respondents actually made less money in 2020, which you can see right here. In addition to that, about 23% of personal trainers were furloughed or laid off. And at the time of this survey, about 6% of those trainers hadn't found new jobs yet. And if we go down here, we can see that male personal trainers made about $2,600 less in 2020 compared to 2019. Interestingly enough, female personal trainers actually made about $2,700 more. Not really a topic for this video, but there is certainly a pay gap here between guys and girls. Not really sure why this would be the case, but the only thing that the article mentioned was that their female participants did have fewer certifications on average. So if we look at the stats of the trainers who responded in both of these 2 years to this survey, we can pretty much see that what I was saying earlier in this video is true. I mean, these are some really experienced trainers who are responding. In both years, 60-something% of participants had a bachelor's degree or higher. In 2020, 65% of the participants had more than 5 years of experience. And even in 2019, more than 50% had 5 years or more of experience too. If you look at the average number of certifications in each year, those are also pretty high. So yeah, you're really not getting too many newbies responding to these surveys. And this is further illustrated in this graph down here. 64% of participants had more than 5 years of experience. Another 14% had 4 to 5 years of experience. So I think it's fair to say, based on all of this, that true average trainer pay is significantly lower than what you see online. You're getting veteran trainers reporting their income far more often than newer trainers. So in response to that question that I asked early on, can I make enough money to support myself and have a bit of fun too if I work as a personal trainer? The answer is definitely yes. You just have to make it through the challenging years when you first get started. If you can persevere and steadily improve yourself over the course of some years, you can make a good living, just like many of these trainers on this end of the bell curve have done. So personal training likely took a bit of a hit in 2020. It really wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be, but it was still a thing. At least that appears to be the case for in-person personal training. What will the industry look like going forward? Well, it's basically a guarantee that virtual personal training and online personal training will both pick up more steam going forward, and they're just going to get more popular. I would say before 2020, and even maybe for the beginning chunk of 2020, many people weren't aware of virtual personal training or online personal training at all. Post 2020, I think the average person not only is aware of both of those two services, but they see a little bit more value in it as well. When it comes to in-person personal training, I think if we're talking about the typical gym setting, personal training in that setting will still be a little bit diminished for the next year. This is because many of the casual gym goers who might consider buying personal training in that traditional gym setting, well, they might just not be comfortable going back to that gym yet. I think though that if the economy stays strong, we can expect to see personal training in a traditional gym setting return to its former glory towards the end of 2021, definitely in 2022. In-person training in smaller, more private studio settings should remain more or less unaffected by the pandemic. There is far less fear of working out in these smaller, more private settings. My private studio had a strong last quarter in 2020, and 1 month into 2021, things are looking good. I expect a pretty typical year for my private studio business. I get asked a lot whether or not things like the Peloton, Mirror, or the new Apple Watch will negatively affect personal training. And what I always say to that is absolutely not. A long time ago, people thought the Bowflex was going to kill personal training. I mean, why go to the gym? Why hire a trainer? You can do all these cool exercises at home. Yeah, it didn't do anything to training. Then it was P90X and insanity that was supposed to kill personal training. Yep, that didn't do anything either. What you really do as a trainer is hold people accountable. Your clients set up a time to work out with you and they have to show up. The commitment to you is what they need. It's very easy to say that you're going to jump on that Peloton bike every day and ride for an hour, but it's even easier to give up on that goal 2 weeks into it because you got busier at work. It's far harder to quit 2 weeks into a personal training program because in a lot of ways it's a bigger commitment. Of course, there are a lot of other benefits to personal training, but make no mistake, this personal accountability component is definitely what keeps the industry going. So I am very happy to say that nothing short of an economic collapse should really do much to negatively affect the personal training industry going forward. As long as the economy stays in a decent place, we should all be perfectly okay. If the economy does take a downturn, that could be a different story, but that is a topic for another day. If you're on the fence about pursuing a career in personal training because of instability within the industry, then I don't think you have anything to fear. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but there's no more to fear this upcoming year compared to any of the previous years. For people in this situation, use 2021 as a year to get certified and to get all your ducks in a row. There is a very strong possibility that later this year and in 2022, we could see a higher demand for personal training, so be ready for that. And that, my friends, is all that we have for today. Do you guys have any questions or comments on anything that we talked about today? If you do, make sure to let me know down in the comments. And of course, if you haven't liked the video yet or subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so because it does help the channel to grow, which does allow me to make more free content for all of you. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and until next time, stay sorta healthy.